Welcome to the Autonomic Healing Podcast. I'm Tom Pells.
And I'm Ruth Lawrenson. We'll be unpacking what it looks like to activate your brain to holistically manage stress and trauma that bring healing to the mind, body, and spirit.
Being free to live authentically as humans.
Thank you for joining us. Let's get this conversation started.
Tom, we're here and we're going to be starting a topic which I've been waiting since we started this whole podcast to talk about, because it's something...
Finally getting to the good stuff?
We've been through a lot of good stuff, I think,
yes.
But it's a space which I love, and it's been so impactful for me, spiritual formation through autonomic healing activation.
Yeah.
And it's just that, guys, it's a fascinating topic. We'll have multiple episodes on this. But for now, do you want to kick us off a little bit? We're talking about autonomic healing activation, spiritual formation. So we've done the somatic, how trauma and stresses impacts our bodies, and so how activating homeostasis through AHA can normalize that.
Somatic homeostasis.
That's right. And then we've also talked about problem solving. That's what we've just come from. Those last few episodes that we did on problem solving, and which was fascinating.
How the brain
yeah.
can problem solve things and inform the mind. And we can consciously simply observe that interaction so that we can experience a cognitive homeostasis that the brain can do as the therapist. That just
it is mind blowing.
It is mind blowing.
Sorry to give such a pun, but it is true. It's like an emoji mind blowing moment. But and so many people find that beneficial, the problem solving, because you can literally ask the brain a question
and the brain will answer.
Yeah.
And say, "Thank you for asking. I've been wanting you to hear from me."
So now we're here and we're going to be talking about this third, we are mind, body, spirit. So, and we'll get into some of the history as to how on earth did you discover this?
Yes.
But let's just generally talk about mind, body, spirit. Like why do we even need AHA, spiritual formation? Why is this so important? Do you want to kick us off?
Yep. To talk a little bit first about being human and a human being. And stress and trauma can severely disrupt just the experience of being and being ourselves to the point that we aren't. So when I originally discovered the somatic homeostasis and how to activate that, a couple of years after that, having recognized that there was a pattern, I wondered if it was possible to activate the cognitive homeostasis, the prefrontal cortex, to do the problem solving and the decision making, and then to inform the conscious mind rather than with the AHA somatic homeostasis and experiencing involuntary sensations and movements that were homeostatic, that normalizing stress and trauma, and building on the idea of operationalizing an aha moment so that they just weren't random kind of things. You're trying to figure something out, you can't. Trying to remember something and you're unable to. And then you stop and the brain says, "Thank you for getting out of my way. Here's what you've been trying to figure out or trying to remember." And we have, I know, or, I remember now. And that was a couple of years after, so about 2017 or so, figured the cognitive homeostasis. I obviously have a great deal of background spiritually, and that just isn't professional. I was a minister, a Master of Divinity degree from seminary, and I'd been a minister for 14 years. And that was kind of my native place growing up, even as a little boy, attending Sunday school. Jesus loves the little children, and God is love. Even though the religion, the church and all that I grew up in was very focused on It said there was grace, but it was very legal.
Mm-hmm.
It was very commandment oriented. Every Sunday morning when you attend church and you have this responsorial reading of the 10 Commandments every Sunday morning, and you've got catechism and you've got all the religion and everything. And it's not that those are bad. It just can misrepresent God.
I remember one episode, I can't remember which one it was, you pulled out your the book
Yes.
that
The
you used
hymnal.
to read from.
The Psalter
from.
hymnal.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was a special moment. But yeah, you're so right. There's this, I think a lot of people, when they think of the spiritual part, they'll associate it with some sort of religion.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yet, I think what I'd love to unpack a little bit before we kind of go down the road of what it actually looks like in terms of clients and how this works is just a little bit. You said to me, we were talking a bit earlier about people get confused between like the soul and the spirit and what's what, because and the reason why and the reason why I asked, I think actually to clarify it will help us understand why we need homeostasis to happen in the spirit.
Yes.
So can you just share a little bit?
Two related but different words, soul and spirit. And most people think of those as interchangeable, but they are different. And you can get philosophers, and they've been doing it for millennia, debating about soul and spirit and all the rest of that. But a user-friendly version of that, at least as I think of it, is that soul is you. That's what soul is. You are a soul. In the old days, if there was a shipwreck and people died or drowned, they would say X number of souls were lost.
Yes.
Those are people who had died, and soul is people. Soul is us as a being. That's how we exist. And as a being, we have body, mind, and spirit. And spirit, the Greek word for that, pneuma, is breath. It's life. It's the animation of the being. And stress and trauma certainly disrupt the body and the mind, but it disrupts the spirit. That sense of life within us is compromised and disrupted. And we relate to each other with the animation of the being. We're interacting. This is spirit. I have a spirit. You have a spirit. Our spirits interact. That life and that synergy or lack thereof. And can get blown up with stress and trauma. And God is spirit. Define God however you wish. And what's fascinating to me is when I do the spiritual formation sessions with people, it's consonant with their worldview and expansive of that. Where that's been limited by so many things, and you can believe this, you cannot believe that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We have a sense as human beings that there is a spirit. We are spiritual. We have an animation of the being. And that connects and interacts with others, and not just other human beings, but other beings. I was on the floor with my daughter's dog, Indy, and we were interacting, and I was getting lots of kisses, and she loved Grandpa and the being, and we connect with that. It's not a stretch to think that there is a being that is the being from which other beings come, a creative. I grew up believing that God is love. A lot of that gets lost in translation because of how a God who is love is represented, and it's not loving at all.
Yeah.
That's stressful and traumatic in and of itself, but it's very stressful and traumatic what people do with and how they represent.
Yes, and obviously I'm from pastoral ministry too, so I can definitely identify with that. Even in the space we're in, culturally right now, I think we're just, I mean, this has always been present, but we're seeing such a heightened level of, you know, people coming out of religious spaces that have been hurt or traumatized or stressed from
and that's
that
not just
space.
in the US, that is around
All around the world. Yes, but let's just go back to so because, you know, let me get this straight in my head. So our soul is the whole.
Yes.
Like, that is me, Ruth.
I love that. The soul is the whole.
The soul
Yep.
is the whole Ruth, the whole Tom.
Yep.
And so that means that the soul is mind, body, spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And so the spirit is what animates.
Yes.
It's the life that's in
Yes.
us. And so with spiritual homeostasis, where we're activating autonomic healing, what is happening there then is that we're allowing a space for our spirits to become normalized,
Yes.
and so that we can relate to other people and God.
Yes.
And so that's the space that, and from that space, I guess the formation part is not only do we, and you've often said this in terms of the body and the mind, but we don't just survive, but we thrive.
Can.
What does it look like to thrive in
Yes.
that spiritual space? Not just, and there might be people who feel like, oh my gosh, my spirit has been squashed by, like you said, these religious settings or stress and trauma, even.
And not just squashed, misshapen.
So there's this kind of ability to, what I think what you've seen as you've gone through various different experiences with clients in this space. You've seen some of that healed, but then also you've seen people grow amazingly so in that space.
In a sense of their being, their life, their energy, their did this with, I think I've mentioned this, a fellow who was Chinese and of that cultural background. And he said, my chi is aligned. I have a sense of oneness and wholeness throughout my entire being and expansive into more than me. And for others, it's that sense of, I have a sense of being at peace with God, where that had never been the case before. And that sense of God, however that is experienced, transcendence and a connection to the transcendent, more than just self, but self collectively.
Yes.
And so with AHA, there is that activation. The body engages in, the brain causes the body, the neurobiology to experience these involuntary sensations and movements that move back and forth between the sympathetic flight or fight and the parasympathetic relax, recover, rest, digest. And then with the problem solving, there are involuntary thoughts and ideas and images that come into the awareness. Keeping track of those, they actually occur in a very distinctive pattern, repeating. And a few years ago, I wondered, because we are spirit, we're not just a body and a mind. We have spirit as an essential part of our being. And that can be so disrupted, distorted, not just in terms relationally of my spirit with someone else's spirit, but in my life with their life, but with God.
Yeah.
And so I wondered if there could be such a thing as a spiritual homeostasis that can be another manifestation of that homeostasis and building on body and mind, but also now including spirit. And what might that be like? And what could that be like? And so I experimented with my relationship with God. And how can we interact? Could there be, out of that involuntary activity, not just in my mind and body, but relationally with you and you being God? And sure enough, that happened. And then I had some very intrepid, adventurous clients who asked me, "What's your latest thing?" And I said, "Well, it's this. It's a spiritual homeostasis." And they said, "Well, what do we do?" Then we did it, and it just kept showing up as a homeostasis that would develop, and it would shift the previously disrupted, distorted lack of peace, lack of well-being, lack of wholeness, to a place where that was at peace. And I've heard that word so many times with people. It's just a sense of peace in their spirit,
Yeah.
in their being.
And you know what, Tom, what I love about this is that this, and I'm curious about what clients say, because, you know, you obviously do, most people come to you for the somatic, and then there's this problem solving session that they can go for if they want to. And then there's this opportunity for spiritual formation.
Yeah.
And so what I love about this is that this isn't for religious people.
Oh, no.
This is because we're all human beings. We all are spirit. I guess what I'm getting at is, I love the fact that, you know, I think in religious spaces we've drawn so many lines, you know, we're in or you're out. And to know as human beings, we are spirit, so that we can explore that space through AHA and homeostasis as we activate homeostasis is fascinating to me. And so you have people from all different walks of life. Some of them that are not quite sure at that time, but then a lot of people go for it and have these amazing experiences. So yeah, I'm just curious about your experiences there with your clients. How do they, you know, we talked before about, you know, it's especially in the somatic space, you know, some people kind of are a bit cynical or not cynical, skeptical. But a lot are skeptical, but they don't have any other options, so they do it. Yeah. But after the somatic, people's minds are blown because they see the results, and then they do the problem solving. So I'm just curious about.
Minds are blown even more. Like, did that just happen? Because I remember one person I talked to not long ago who said the words were just coming out of my mouth. They were occurring. I was consciously aware of them. And I would just, because you said, just say them out loud. And this person said 90% of the words coming out of my mouth weren't words I would use. I would not think those. I would not say them. And yet I was saying them out loud, and they were coming from my brain. And then to experience a similar phenomena, but it's gone. And on a spirit to spirit interaction, hearing those.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think that no matter what I found, you know, in my career dealing with lots of people, some of them religious, some of them not, is that I think underneath it all, because we are spirit, we're designed to connect with the Spirit of God. And so I think that people have so many, whether they feel angry with God, or there's all different questions,
fearful,
or
estranged from, or
or worried about death, or worried about some big questions of life. I think deep, you know, you scratch the surface with people. There's a lot there with people, wherever they are, whatever, whether they, you know, define themselves in a certain religion or not. That's who we are.
Predominantly, more and more are not.
Yes,
they don't want to be.
And what this is doing,
spiritual.
But what this is doing is allowing that free space without condition, without agenda, for people to actually connect with God.
Yes.
And that's what, I mean, as a minister myself, that's what I was so excited about for me when I was like, first encountered AHA spiritual formation. I was so excited because, you know, I've spent the majority of my life pursuing connecting with God. And I've shared this with you many times, but and I felt like when I did my first AHA spiritual formation, so I mean, it blew my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm hearing from God for myself.
Yeah.
And then,
and it's personal.
and it's not just because I'm super spiritual or a guru or anything like that. It's because I'm a human being and I'm able through AHA to connect now in my spirit with God. And that is so satisfying and so rewarding and so life-giving, that session.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to share a few people that have gone through it. And guys, we're not going to get everything through this one episode, but we're going to have a few episodes because it's such a big part to unpack, isn't it? But let's dive into share a few of the people that have gone through this and their experiences, because I think that best communicates what really it is.
And how God communicates is individual to each person. There isn't this is what that looks like and this is how God would express. No. We're all different. We learn differently. We communicate differently. We experience ourselves and others differently. And some are very visual, images and ideas. Others, it's like listening to a conversation. Others, it's a string of thoughts, and the ideas and images represent something transcendent and larger, but it's like a symbolism, and it's moving from one symbol to another symbol, but those are symbols that relate to that individual and expresses something very unique and individual to them.
Yeah.
And it's a progression, and it moves from a place of dysfunction and disruption to a place of wholeness and peace. And again, the shifting back and forth between flight or fight and relax and recover, but in a relational dynamic. I love AHA somatic because I see the healing. I can anticipate it. I know what's going to happen if the person just cooperates. They're going to have that sense of somatic well-being. I find the cognitive, the problem solving fascinating, but the spiritual ones blow my mind because I never know what that's going to look like, but I do know it will be very personal and intimate and individual, and and God speaks directly to that person in ways that are transformative. And because it's transformative, it's formative.
Yes.
And it takes the grotesque distortions that can happen to us in our spirit because of trauma and stress. And some of that is directly because of the agency of religion and religious people. And it just becomes very authentic.
Yeah.
And we get to experience, oh, this is me. This is who I really am. And God's affirming that.
It's amazing.
And clarifying that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we move on, let's just clarify for our listeners, because we're going to share a couple of sessions now of people who've gone through this and their experiences, which are awesome. You're in for a treat, guys. But so it's the same sort of session, right? So you they come in, they
it's just like an AHA session. It can be anywhere from, I've had them be 15 minutes. I've had them frequently be an hour, or I've seen them go on for 2, because God is going to be God.
Yeah.
He's lovingly going to, or she's going to lovingly communicate, this is me and this is you. And I want you to enjoy you the way I do. Yeah.
So they'll come with a question. It might
they'll have some issue.
Yeah. So
they'll come with some disruption in their sense of themselves, their spirit. And it's not body. It's not a mind thing. I can't figure this out. It's a disruption in relationship. Yes.
And so they will, you'll spend a little bit of time with them kind of figuring out what that is. Let's consolidate that.
What's the issue in your spirit? Yes.
And then they will activate homeostasis, and then what happens is that they share. And like you said, there's all these different expressions. And I remember asking you, because I'm visual, and I will share with you when I've been in a session what I'm seeing.
Yep.
And then other people will maybe they'll have a word, just one word or another
they'll
word.
Or
they'll actually hear something.
Someone.
I mean, there's all
saying,
sorts of expressions.
Yes.
But then my point, I think, is that, there's not one way. It's all, I love that because it's
very
just
individual.
Very individual. And then you just dictate as you do.
I just take dictation. I just type down, this is what God is communicating.
And then you reflect afterwards.
Yes, and what initiates, rather than a problem that you're asking your brain to solve, it's like an invitation in relationship that's expressed to, and most people use God. Some will say spirit. I've had someone say, I can't relate because of trauma to either of that, and it's a thinking being. Okay. They know who you're talking to.
But the question is inviting
God's response and input
into that space to bring, I guess to answer that question.
Yeah, it's like we're doing right now. It's conversation. It's just transcendent, which is
so amazing. Awesome. Yeah. Okay.
Here's an example. Okay, this is a person who, in their own words, I've never had my own relationship with God. I've always been told, you have to, and this is what you do, and this is what that looks like, and if you're having a relationship with God, it is this, and it is not yours. It's mine imposed on you. Maybe, and the person said, maybe I had a relationship with God as a child, but I wanted to have my own walk, and I couldn't. And that got to the point where forcing someone to love and need you, but then maybe they don't need to be compelled to have a relationship with God. Our bodies are a temple, and scriptures are seen in a different light by different people, and maybe I'm mad at God. This is where I'm exploring the spiritual issue. Yeah. He said, I feel like I've missed out on a lot in my life, being a kid, having different friendships, different influences and opportunities that I missed out on. I missed out on a college experience because of family, and blamed God and my parents for that. And then, well, what do you want to invite? What's the invitation to God? And framing that as you would to anyone. And so what was come up with was, God, where are you in all this?
It's a very common question.
Yes, I've had that many times myself. God, where are you in all this?
Yeah.
And sharing a couple of different versions of this, you'll hear very distinctive differences between them. And for this individual, the invitation was, God, where are you in all this? And this person just started sharing what came into their awareness. And the first one was, around. God, where are you all this? Around. Underneath. And capture the symbolism. Mountain. Depth. Inside. Bird. Sky. Blue. City. Country. This may seem like a stream of consciousness, but if you stay with it, it's not. It's just whose consciousness. Time. Above. Valley. Trees. Spirit. Relax. Unopened. Words. Pray. Talk. Fury. Grievance. Ache. Pain. Relax. Relax. Here. Now. Infinity. An hourglass. Full. Live. Light. Worship. Create. Everywhere. Relax. Fulfill. Promise. Together. Love. Promise. Come. Evade. Listen. Soul. Birth. Live. Friends. Peace. Awareness. Temple. Great. Faithful. Reach. Window. Wisdom. Laugh. Cry. Together. Breathe. Ask. Together. Happiness. Seek. Whole. Forgiven. Forgive myself.
Wow.
He said, it seems done. I have a sense of peace. My body feels different. Like relaxed is not the word. It feels greater than relaxed. Fulfilled. As far as God, I love God. I have a sense He's here right now. Right here. And the stuff from before, He is right there too. No hate, no blaming, love, freedom.
Wow. I've literally got shivers. I've got shivers listening to that because it's so, you know how powerful you can see the transformation, like you say, and then
the shift.
And the shift from, and I, you know, what he ended with, you know.
Yeah,
what was the last sentence again?
The last three were whole, forgiven, forgive myself.
Yeah. I mean, what an amazing space to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful.
So here's a different one. And this is an individual who'd been dealing with a lot of stress and fear surrounding their situation in life. And getting overwhelmed and a lot of things, as this person put it, I wouldn't normally get overwhelmed by. And doing AHA, but there are times like at activities with family where I go to the car and I'm not able to handle so many people. It's like too many, and I've not had that before. And just a sense of, it's easy to stay away from things and people, but feel like I should go back, and I feel overwhelmed and scared. This is what that person said. This is an existential question.
Okay.
And existential means existence. It's life and death. Because literally some of the circumstances in their life was literally from a physical, medical condition, life and death. So to be feeling overwhelmed, and to have other people and interacting with them, compounding that, So this is an existential question, they said, but I treat it as a problem to be solved. And then I get stuck. See, because it wasn't just a problem to be solved. It was an existential issue. It was relational. It was existence. And so the person said, how do I go about dealing with the existential, literally life and death issues that I'm facing? So we came up with an invitation to God to have a say in that.
Mm-hmm.
God, how can I be confident and not overwhelmed in this? Now listen to the difference. This is very different,
Yeah.
but it suited this individual. God, how can I be confident and not overwhelmed in this? It's me. Protection. I am with you. I made you. You've already done all of this. Don't worry. It will be okay. I'm seeing a picture of a house and a sense of shelter. I will take your burdens. There is no need for stress. It's like I have a physical sense of something just came through me and went. I can't really explain, but I feel it, and my physical manifestations of stress just calmed. You are strong. I am strong. I have a sense of peace now.
Mm.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah.
Because that was loving.
Yeah.
And that, with a sense of existential crisis,
Mm-hmm.
I am strong.
Mm-hmm.
I have a sense of peace now.
Mm-hmm.
Why? You are strong.
That's so amazing.
Spoke right to it.
And so, there's two examples here that we've just given, and coming with very different questions. One is like trying to unpack this, they need their own experience of God, and then the other just big questions around life and death, but need to do that, unpack that with God, and also two very different ways of as I'm sure the listeners can hear through what you've shared, different ways in which that happens.
Very different.
And you've got so many more examples
I've done
of
this
this.
with many hundreds of people.
And I've got my own examples with this, which I will love to share it in the next coming episodes. Mine, we went through mine earlier today, didn't we? And just my first one, and it was really actually quite moving. Just reading through my first spiritual formation session, and just thinking of how much has happened in me, how much I've been formed since that first session,
Yes.
Because it was a catalyst, and I've continued in that space.
Yeah.
In AHA.
And things that did not seem possible were not a part of your vision for what could be, have just exploded and expanded.
Yeah. And so this is such an amazing space, AHA Spiritual Formation, where we get to connect with God and bring a question.
Because God wants that.
Absolutely. I believe that.
Yeah.
And that invitation is for everyone to come into that space. And so I love hearing the stories and seeing the life that comes out of this space with spiritual formation.
And it makes accessible what has been for many so forbidding or off-putting. But isn't that what a parent would want with their child? Isn't that what a friend would want with their friend?
Yeah. So we're going to stop there, but we are going to continue sharing examples, kind of digging into a little bit of maybe like how this all came about. And probably have some guests on too, sharing their experiences with spiritual formation.
Yeah.
Guys, it's fascinating. Stay with us on this on this topic. We can't wait to... Tom?
We can experience homeostasis, that normalization, that sense of well-being, not just in our bodies, and not just sorting out the problems in our mind, but at a sense of being. And when you have all of those together, that's transformative. You've been listening to the Autonomic Healing Podcast.
Join us next time as we continue in our conversations with Tom. If you're interested in pursuing your own autonomic healing journey and want to find a practitioner, visit our website, innerworkings.org. See you at the next episode.